What food has made you wonder? How did our ancestors discover that this was edible? Bazinga! The puffer fish. You need a special license to even be able to cook it. Exactly. Imagine the cavemen, unable to get their license, seeing this fish swim around with impunity for millennia. One day they just couldn't contain themselves any longer, said F this shoot, who needs a license anyway, and just went for it. The criminals. Mushrooms. How did they discover which ones were edible? Maybe they used them to poison their enemies and accidentally used an edible one and thus discovered that some of them can actually be eaten? Who knows? They could have observed animals eating certain types and avoiding others. Geometra esculenta. Not only does eating this raw will screw you, boiling it once will also screw you. But, if you boil it twice, you can eat it. Who thought that this mushroom was edible after the first or second guy had a painful demise? Kiviak 500 whole orc small bird stuffed into a seal skin made airtight with the seal's fat then left outside under rocks for 3 months, mostly eating on birthdays or at weddings. Who the hell did this and thought this will be a tasty snack in a few months? It's polite to eat it outside and it's considered good when it makes your eyes sting. It's never cooked and you just pull the bird out and start chowing down. WTF. WTF is with Scandinavians and just putting things in the ground or under rocks. Edit. Thanks to all the Scandinavian folks who brought to light the preservation benefits that the frozen ground provided for the meat. I'm also curious as to how they protect against wild animals eating the meat, or bacteria insects getting to the meat. Swallows spit nests. African or European swallow? Civet coffee, although more of a recent discovery 18th century, but who in their right mind decided, I am going to make coffee with this animal's poop? I'm surprised I see no mention of coffee in general. How on earth did people figure out to pick the berries, ferment them, dry them, roast them, grind them, put that into boiling water, filter it out again and drink the fluid? Arabian herders saw their goats eating coffee berries and acting energized afterwards. People began eating the berries. It took a long time before they learned to just boil the bean. Oysters. How could someone think to eat something that looks like it came out of a bull's nose? Probably starving. Wild bitter almonds have a significant amount of cyanide in them. Whatever tribe in the Middle East that decided to keep breeding them and eating them anyway until they cultivated a non-poisonous cultivar was brave as hell. Or desperate. It's great that almonds were domesticated and became full of happiness. The underground nut that is used in Unia cooking. It's poisonous but you can eat it after it has been stored underground covered in ash for God knows how long. Buakalak I think it's called. Feel like I am gonna ask what Nuna is and get a response like Nuna business kiddo. Artichoke. Let's take that spiky weed that makes your hands taste bitter for days and boil it for an hour or two so we can scrape a tiny bit if nothing off the leaves with our teeth. How hungry was that dude? Edit. To be clear, I love artichokes, and they do not require butter or mayo to be delicious. I was at a business lunch as a grown man in my 40s, having never eaten artichoke, and the other guy orders a grilled one as an appetizer. 5 minutes later I'm still chewing on my first leaf trying not to show the why do people eat this face, when I notice him scraping the leaf with his teeth. That information would have been very valuable ahead of time. Geoduck. Looks like a dismembered dong. Squirts salty liquid at you when you touch it. Geoduck, isn't that a Pokemon? Who saw spiky sea urchins and decided to try them out? Thousands of years ago, everyone in Japan was just like, yeah, it's in the ocean. It's fair game. It's free real estate. It's free meal estate. Fix that for you. Honey. Who the F looked at a nest full of angry stinging little demons and thought they are hiding something delicious in there? I know it. Probably watched the trouble a bear would go to eat it and copied it. Century eggs. Take duck eggs, wrap them in hay and mud and ashes. Legend has it horse urine used to be used too, because it's alkaline. Wait a few weeks months. Break them open whereupon they are grey and jelly-like and pungent smelling slightly of ammonia. Boil and eat. I love them. But I really have to wonder who thought that eating them was a good idea in the first place. Or perhaps, how hungry they were that eating them seemed like a good idea. They might have just forgotten the egg and one day they were so desperate for food they remembered about that egg and said F it. That's the story of Worcestershire sauce. Some dude had a barrel of stuff that didn't taste so good at first, so he just forgot about it for a year or two or more and went back to try it again and was like, oh damn, this is fire now. Yogurt. Hey man, this is pretty good. What is it? Don't worry about it. Conversation 2000 years ago. Yogurt. We're desperate. Just eat it. Harkerel. It's made from sharks which usually are not edible. IRC that because they lack bladders. So all the nasty stuff accumulates instead of getting flushed out. Do your own research though, if you want to know for sure. As a matter of fact, however, it can't be eaten unless you gut and decapacitate it, bury it, place stones on top to squish the shark and press the nasty stuff out, leave it alone for 1 to 3 months, dig out the corpse and cut it into stripes, air the stripes for another 3 to 4 months, remove the brown crust. Sounds delicious. Huh, I dunno. I can't imagine how that could happen. Hey Bjorn, I caught this shark. Odin's dong leif. That thing smells like piss. Bury it or something. Yeesh. Later that winter. Free toots. I'm starving. Are we completely out of food? Well, there's that nasty poison garbage shark leif buried a while back. Guess we could dig it up and give it a shot. Worst case, we die of moldy shark poisoning, I guess. Hand me a shovel and a fork, Eric. What I don't understand is how rotting piss shark jerky went from a food of last resort to a delicacy. Worst case, we die of moldy shark poisoning, I guess. Hand me a shovel and a fork, Eric. By Loki's balls. BJRN. This shit still smells awful. We're still alive though, so I guess we should stick to it and air it out a bit longer. Agreed, Eric. Here, have some Brennan. Your breath smells like butt. Skull. You know what? At least it tastes better than it smells. Skull. And the Brennan washes that taste away and gets us drunk. Know what? We could make this a tradition. Cheese. Who was like, I'm gonna eat the solidified part of this bad milk, and the process to make cheese is so complicated I can't figure out how it was discovered in the first place. It's really not that complicated if you understand how we used to preserve food before refrigerators or sedentary society. You boil it, salt it, and pour it in a container that's portable, which in this case was probably the lining of a goat ancestor's stomach. Someone did that to expired milk and a somewhat edible goop came out. Then we spent 10,000 more years perfecting it and now it's goddamn delicious. The storage was the key. Using the stomachs of sheep, cows etc. There was rennet in the stomach which helps to make the harder cheeses. Surströmming, you know, the Swedish fish that is put underground to rot. IRC, it was invented accidentally. Salt used to be pretty expensive so some traders didn't use enough to preserve the fish properly, but sold it anyway. When they came back they were surprised when the townsfolk asked if they had any more of the fish prepared in that way. But why would somebody eat it? I mean the way it smells is terrible. Saffron. Who the F figured out that the stamen from a specific crocus flower, when picked and dried then steeped in warm liquids was going to be delicious? Easy. At first they wanted to extract the color and use it to dye stuff. Then they discovered that it also tastes good. Cashew nuts. The shell is poisonous. The oil from the shell is poisonous. The nut is okay. If you pick one, shell it and eat it, you will get a poison ivy type reaction everywhere it touched you. Potatoes. The leaves are poisonous. The weird bubbly shoot on the roots is fine, but only if you cook them. Wild potatoes can make you quite sick eating raw. Bazinga. We're starving. Boiling makes things safe to eat. I'll try this. I'm screwed either way. Starving is going to be the answer to most of the food described here. The answer is always grains. I can't figure out how our ancestors discovered that prehistoric varieties of wheat or barley were edible. Good question. I can offer you some insight there. When my dad was a kid, on a farm that was just barely more than a homestead, they chewed barley seed for a snack. They didn't have money for gum anyway. Barley is tastier than wheat, though wheat makes a better gum. There are plenty of other wild seeds too, though many varieties of grass have tiny seeds. If harvest has already happened, you stop by the granary before heading out and fill up your pocket with some seed. Reminded me of my childhood snack. We used to peel off the outer layers of sugarcane and take a huge bite out of it. The fibers were sweet and we chew until there was no taste left and spit it out. We pretended we were chewing tobacco or betel nut. It's awesome to know kids growing up around farms share pretty similar experiences despite differences in location. Durian. Let's take this spiky fruit that smells like shoot and crack it open. See some yellow gooey shoot and start eating it. It smells rotten. It's the consistency of boogers. It tastes okay I guess. And an hour after you eat it you start belching up sickening burps. This is why I think it's the worst effing thing I've ever eaten. I've had all kinds of weird shoot, from canned haggis to fermented fish, but the never-ending durian taste of your burps is the one I regretted most. Effing vile stuff. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to Reddit Mania for more juicy Reddit content and check out our main channel. We upload a new video like this every day on both channels. See you soon.